people know and the people who have been here for a while, we abandoned Prism, which was essentially an Ohm fork, because everything went to shit. Time, Ohm, they all nuked. The current price of them, I think Time went to like $400 or something from all-time high of $9,000. So that was a disaster, and we decided that we were gonna abandon that and move towards something else. Um, and we called it Thingy, but Hunt, as you guys should know by now, is Thingy. So there's no more Thingy. It's just Hunt at this point. And I think there's actually some similarities in the philosophy behind, like how we wanted to accumulate a variety of assets with Prism. And I think the same thing is actually possible with Hunt, which makes it all the more interesting. But yeah, so Prism right now, we're not even thinking about it. Hunt is our priority. And that's what we're going to focus on expanding. But basically, the way Hunt works is essentially, we've been in this game called Krabata, where you can mine these crabs. They have an idle game, and it's pretty simple. You click Start Game, you wait 4 hours, which is a ridiculously long amount of time, apparently, and then you get about $100 or $106 for every game that you play. There's a bunch of other features that are going to be released for the game. For example, land. There's going to be a battle game, which is essentially player versus player. There's also looting. So there's a bunch of ways to make money in this game. They've mentioned scholarships, which, if you guys followed Axie Infinity at all, Axie Infinity basically blew up because of the scholarship system. Because now, you have hundreds of thousands of players who they can actually make a living off of this game, and they're getting more than like a fucking doctor from playing this game on Ethereum. So it's pretty crazy. And Krabata is pretty similar, except actually Krabata pays a lot more than Axie Infinity, and they also made a lot of improvements to the tokenomics. There's a lot of sinks that prevent the token from just being purely inflationary, and that was an issue with Axie's tokenomics because SLP, if you look at the chart, it's just basically been on a downtrend forever that is like never ending. And so the geniuses and the Krabata team, they decided to improve their tokenomics and they implemented all these burn functions. For example, when you breed, there's also a tavern where you rent crabs. There's marketplace fees, and I'm sure they have a bunch of other designs that they're going to be implementing with the new features like the battle game and land, where that was also make, it would also burn some of the tusk supply to prevent it from just being purely inflationary. So we like the crabs. We think it's a much better design than Axie Infinity, and also it's extremely undervalued at this point. Krabata, let me check real quick, is at about $118 million market cap, and Axie Infinity is $5 billion. So Krabata, I think, is actually going to eventually start catching up to Axie Infinity, which, like even in probably the short midterm, I wouldn't be surprised if this went to like $1 billion market cap. And, like I think for us, that would be like a 15x on our investment or something like that. So yeah, we're really bullish on the project and we think it has a long way to go. And so the idea for Hunt basically came from, we were already kind of doing this process with our friends, and um like myself and my younger brother, for example, we invested in Krabata, and we just pooled money together, got our own crabs, and started mining them. And then we talked to developer friends who could automate the whole process and created bots for us. And so now we're making this money purely passively at this point, which is tens of thousands of dollars for us. And then the idea for Hunt pretty much came out of recognizing that, like, oh shit, we could actually crowdsource the liquidity for this and give people access to the same insane yields that we're getting off of it already. And that was pretty much the basic idea. And then once we started punching the numbers, it got even crazier because we realized that this could actually increase exponentially. Where, for example, we have 20 teams on week one, we have, 25, 30 teams on week two. And so essentially, like, the yield is increasing perpetually at an exponential rate. And then the other idea that we had was, okay, we could benefit CCC by implementing this performance fee, which is 15%. So assuming all the pools fill up every single time we launch them, whether it's 5 pools, 10 pools, whatever, essentially you could add like, like 40, 50 grand to, like CCC's treasury every single month. And, just for reference, it's like we're going to have, like eventually hundreds of these pools. So it's going to be a shit ton of money coming into CCC. And so we figured that this would be, a really good product to add to our ecosystem. Because as I talked about in all the other AMAs, the concern with CCC and how you keep a project like this running perpetually, to the benefit of the DAO, to our holders, so that we're doing buybacks so they can earn yield, is that we actually need to earn consistent revenue over time. And a Ponzi scheme doesn't do that because eventually, you run out of new investors coming in to pay the old investors, and then the whole thing collapses, which is essentially, like what we've been seeing with these own forks, node projects, and so on. So this is infinitely better than any of that bullshit, and it kind of pisses me off that people don't understand it yet, because the probably the most important feature of Hunt, um, in regards to the benefit to the CCC ecosystem and to the holders, is that it's not a Ponzi scheme. Like this yield that we're generating is actually coming from each game's unique economy, and so it's an actually existing market. It's something that is going to be running perpetually, that is going to generate revenue for our protocol, versus just the Ponzi scheme of finding new investors to pay old investors. And so even if not a single dollar went into Hunt, tomorrow or next week, this thing is still going to be running and we're still going to be making a shit ton of money off of it. So that's the beauty of Hunt, really. But the plans for Hunt, so the first product that we're going to be releasing is going to be for Krabata, and that's going to be for the idle game. And so essentially, if you deposit money into these pools, you're going to get an NFT, which is going to represent your share of the total pool. So let's say that the pool is $100,000. If you deposit $10,000, then your share is going to be 10%. So whatever the yield is, let's say it's $18,000 per month, like minus our performance fee, obviously, and your 10% is essentially going to be 1,000, like $530 essentially, whatever. Um, so basically, like you're going to own 10% of the pool, and you're going to earn that yield on a daily basis. Um, so you'll be able to actually, and the rate that we calculated is going to be 2%. So sorry, the number that I just put was inaccurate, but 2% means that in 50 days, you're going to get a complete return on your initial. And now, if you want to compound, that's also up to you. You can compound simply by adding, more money every time a pool opens up. And the minimum deposit amount, by the way, is going to be $100. So you could compound up to $100, $1,000, 2,000, whatever. It's up to you. So basically, it's like the yield is ridiculously high. 2% per day is higher than any of these node projects. I think Thor, last time I checked, was something like 1.7%. I don't know what MCC's multi-node project is offering, but the yield that we're paying out is higher than anything that I know of on the market right now. And that's only for one of our pools. We have another pool that's going to release eventually that's going to pay something like 3% or 2.5%. We're still determining what sort of fee we want to take off of that. But this is the best offer on the market. I don't care what anyone has to say about it. It just is what it is. Um, so, yeah. And the yield from that is going to come from the idle game in Krabata. So our bots are going to be mining in this game. It's all automated. The bot starts the game, it closes the game, and that's when it claims the rewards. And then when it claims the rewards is when it will be distributed to the user. So this isn't something that's mined per block. So you don't have to refresh your account every single like minute and see if you got rewards, because that's not how it works. It's not mined per block. It's completely contingent on the bot actually initiating and closing the game, which per the Krabata rules is every 4 hours. So we're only getting the yield every 4 hours, and that's when we can distribute them. For now, the way the bot is actually going to work is that we're going to distribute it on a daily basis. It's just simpler to do that way for us right now, and it's also going to save us on gas. But eventually we are going to alter it so that it is happening every 4 hours. So that isn't the, like, plan forever. Um, but yeah, so the reason why we did 2% is basically Krabata, the daily ROI actually changes, obviously, and it depends on whether you were early to the game. Like if you got in when TUS was like 0.13%, 0.13 cents, obviously you're making a much higher, like daily return at this point. Um, but the way the 2% is calculated is going to be off the initial that's required and then the actual monthly yield of the game. And so that also means the price of the pool is going to change, but that we're going to try and maintain that 2% daily ROI. And so, sorry, I lost my fucking train of thought working through too many things. But anyway, so um, yeah, the 2% fee is based off the pool price, the total monthly yield. And so if the pool, for example, is $20,000 and then the yield is $18,000 a month, like we're going to adjust our fee to make the daily ROI 2%. And we have complete control over that, so it can be adjusted whenever. Um, so that's only the first iteration of Hunt. We're looking at games like, I don't even know how you pronounce it, Pegaxi, I think is the other one. We're looking at another game called Chicken. We're even looking into, for example, actually fractionalizing and automating Strong, for example, because Strong you need an initial of $5,000 to get into, and obviously that's expensive for a lot of people. Um, so like essentially the goal for Hunt is fractionalize everything and then take our performance fee and then return that to CCC so that our treasury is constantly growing and so that we can initiate like buybacks which distribute yield to our holders. And so for me, I think, like Hunt can go really far. I mean, to the point where we're literally making millions, if not tens of millions, on a weekly basis. And the reason for that is because it can be adapted to so many different games or, like other DeFi protocols, nodes as a service, and so on. It's not exclusive to just Krabata. That's just the first product that we're going to be releasing. And I guess to talk more about the performance fee, let me actually look up this chart that I created. But so, for example, like we're looking at week one, we're going to be earning something like, like let's say 140 a month. It becomes 180 a month, then it becomes 245 a month, then 317,000 a month, and then 548,000 a month. And so, my point being is that like every time these pools are filled, the the amount that is coming into the CCC treasury is increasing, every single week. So it's not growing at a fixed rate. Um, so pretty soon, I would estimate in a month's time, we'll probably see, something like, like 1.5 to $2 million coming into the CCC treasury on a monthly basis, which if we were to use that for buybacks, for example, um, is like $66,000 per day, basically, that we could do in buybacks. So it's a lot of money. It's a huge contribution to our volume. Even aside from that, the money that's coming into the treasury, for example, we can start allocating towards other projects. Like we've invested in PTP, we've invested in Convex, we invested in Butterfly. So all that this does, like by fractionalizing these protocols and crowdsourcing the liquidity, it's like not only are we giving a significant advantage to holders by giving that 2% daily ROI, and so it's like obviously we're going to be attracting investors because we have attractive yield, but we're also going to be bringing in, like more liquidity into CCC so that we can start executing, like on our vision of being an investment DAO and entering other protocols and accumulating a variety of assets. The other aspect to it too is that we're actually already accumulating those assets through Hunt, which is this is what I meant by like comparing it to Ohm or Time, for example. The difference being that in Time and Ohm, you're essentially minting a token, like by depositing bonds, and so you get these discounts on their protocol's token, which is Time or Ohm, and then you are guaranteed, a specific yield. But that yield is, again, contingent on new investors coming into the protocol. If they stop coming into the protocol, all you have is an infinitely inflationary token that's constantly depreciating in value. So since with Hunt we don't have that issue, people are actually getting a sustainable yield. But at the same time, CCC is the one that actually maintains ownership of those assets. So when that money comes in, for example, $100,000, which represents 5 teams, right? The the user is entitled to that yield, but they're not entitled to the asset that's generating that yield. That yield belongs purely to CCC, and that's how we're going to maintain it. The reason for that being, it actually comes from a genuine concern, which is it's not that we just want to take these assets from users. It's because also we're concerned with the longevity of these games, and we don't want people coming in and benefiting from them who don't actually have a long-term stake, like in the project. So for example, like we're going to reserve all of CRA. We're not distributing CRA yield because CRA is a governance token. And so someone that's only, entering Hunt because they want the yield to market dump, we're not going to give them governance tokens to dump as well. We're going to keep that. So yeah, so Hunt, kind of similarly to Timer Ohm, is actually giving us, like ownership of these assets, but then the users are still entitled to the yield that those assets are generating. So in that sense, like we're kind of being the middleman between these protocols. But yeah, so I'll open it up for questions at this point, and I'm sorry, I know it's a little scattered. And it's just because like I had a lot of family stuff to deal with earlier today, and I pretty much only hopped on my computer 15 minutes before this AMA, so I didn't really have time to organize all my thoughts today. But I'll try my best to answer everyone's questions and, condense everything so that it's all understandable for you guys. But yeah, so I'll open it up now for questions, and you can just request to be a speaker. All right, it's open. Jay Brown. Yeah.
Good day. Just a quick question.
Hey.
I guess I'm a long-term holder, basically bought Triple C on day one, gone through the migration and everything, and still hanging on. A question I have, and I guess it's my lack of understanding of tokenomics, I guess it is. But I'm looking at all these things that you're doing that's going to generate revenue, and you said that you're going to do buybacks for Triple C. But my thing is that
Yeah.
if I'm hanging on to my Triple C, I can't make any profits unless I sell my Triple C. So is there
Yeah,
it
of
going to be
course.
anything where, like, for folks that are holding on to Triple C, receive, a partial dividend type of thing, um, so that we don't have to actually sell our Triple Cs to make a profit? Because what I'm seeing here is that every time you guys have an AMA or announcement or something, Triple C runs up, then a lot of people sell it off and it drops back down. And I'm like, I'm just sitting here holding the bags. And I'm like, I'd love to hold this thing long term and not have it to sell and be, kind of like a strong block, right? You're locked into
Yeah.
Triple C and still be able to
Yeah, I
profit.
understand where you're coming from, but I've answered this question in pretty much all of our AMAs. The idea behind dividends, actually, I mean, it's just not a good idea. It's not inherently terrible either, but it has to be carefully considered because actually, I would rather do a buyback and have someone sell CCC because then they're losing 10%, which goes to our treasury. If I do a dividend, I don't get that 10%, so there's no advantage to CCC there. And that's why those fees are there, is to actually incentivize, not only long-term holding, but that's so when someone does decide to sell or exit, like the protocol is still benefiting off of that. So it works both ways, to the benefit of the holders from every single buy, and then to the benefit of the treasury from every single sell. So we could do dividends, but right now, just quite frankly, like I haven't put any thought into it because
Yeah,
it's just not that significant, and it's not a priority for me with everything else that we're doing.
yeah, and I understand.
So
And I saw the roadmap you laid out of basically definitely getting some stable coins in there, which I'm throwing my hat of UST, 20% just sitting there. But once we definitely build up to the amount of stable coins that you're saying, I think 50% or something like that. I think that's something to look into. Again, we can put it to a vote
yeah,
with the
I
community.
mean, if we
And
have fifty
it doesn't have to
percent of our
be.
treasury in stable coins, I'm definitely not giving that away.
Oh,
We're
no, no, no,
holding
no.
that.
That's
Yeah,
that's that's locked.
yeah,
As far as I'm concerned, right? That should be generating extra
yeah.
money every time, and that 50% should not drop. I agree with that completely, especially when bear market hits and people start panicking. We can say, hey, we got 50% locked no matter what.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at here is the for the dividend part. I'm just looking at. I don't want to sell, and maybe I got to think about it differently, a different strategy. Maybe you guys can help me out. Is maybe the reflections that I get, I can sell some of the reflections. That might be the way to go. But definitely, I want to be a long-term holder here and benefit from this. But again, unless I sell my triple C, I don't make anything. So I'm just trying to figure out ways to actually profit from this without selling my triple Cs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's something that we can discuss over the long term, but for right now, the emphasis is definitely on buybacks, and because when people sell, that benefits the protocol. So if anything, I want to still encourage that sort of behavior. Um, Someone asked me a bunch of questions in the Discord, so I'll just go through them one by one. The first question is, will the Crabada strategy change based on the game's upcoming releases? For example, switching from breeding and mining to battling or looting if more profitable. So, um, the I'll answer the last part, which is in regards to looting. To be explicit, like we are exploring looting, and I hired another developer who is a friend in real life to start exploring that and considering if we could start implementing bots for that. Looting provides much higher returns, so if it is feasible, that's something we can definitely do. But the other side of that, and what complicates it, is the Krabata team is actually trying to implement bot prevention um, for looting. And that's because it's a huge pain in the ass for pretty much every other player who doesn't have a pure bulk team because they're getting looted constantly. And these bots can detect when it's a weaker team instantly and then just loot them. So it's pretty much like it's guaranteed that you're not going to win around the way that it's currently working. The other side of it, and the update that they implemented for the game on the 15th, it already kind of deals with this, and I shared my thoughts in the Krabata Discord. But basically, um, and I think Fife Guild actually described it best, where it's kind of like a rock paper scissors situation, because the faction changes make it so that there's actually no single team composition that will win 100% of the time, or even like 95% of the time. So I think that update in itself already makes looting a little bit more complicated, and I think probably more, like time intensive and capital intensive. And the only way I could imagine someone working around it is if they were actually going to calculate the population data and see like what has the largest population, and then adjust their team composition that way, so that like they happen to have, like, let's say, a minority composition that's more powerful than, like let's say two primes, one bulk, or whatever. They could get craboids instead, for example. That's the only way that I could see looting really working, but the update, in my opinion, already kind of improves the looting situation and makes it more fair for all players. In regards to the breeding strategy, we've already started breeding every single other class. And so we have a ton of them. And that means, like I mentioned before, we're offering to upgrade people's teams if they give their teams to CCC. And that's because we've already started breeding these other classes. So we have craboids, we have gems, we have primes. And so, like, we're definitely going to be changing the composition of our teams for the new meta. Um, all right. For the second question, if Krabata is no longer profitable, will the team look to change plays and move to a different gamified play? Yeah, I already answered this. So Krabata is not the only game that Hunt is going to be applied to. Hunt can be applied to virtually an infinite amount of games as long as the game design, allows us to implement Hunt where it can be automated and fractionalized. Those are pretty much like the two most important conditions for whether we enter a game with Hunt. Is so yeah, it's going to apply to a variety of games. So even if Krabata were to become no longer profitable, there are other games that we're going to be generating yield from. And like I said, it's not even just games; it's also nodes, for example. Um, so we can even fractionalize those and take a performance fee off of that. And that is our immediate goal, by the way, is like for February alone, we have the idle game pool, but then we also have another pool that we plan to release immediately. And then even aside from that, like I said, we also want to fractionalize strong and start capturing fees off of that, because obviously people want exposure to that yield, and the only way to get that exposure is going to be through us, unless their team is to implement another design that makes it more accessible. But until then, we are, like, we're the ones that are allowing people an entry into any of these games or any of these node projects. um so yeah, that answers the second question. And I guess the second part is, if so, who decides this? The CCC team of the Hunt NFT holders? I mean, it's not something like, for example, if you enter Krabata, right? um, and then we have a pool for another game, you don't get exposure to the pool for that other game. And someone may not even want that, for example, because the return on that game may be lower than Krabata, in which case, like, if you're not, essentially, the only reason for you to enter that pool is if you are bullish on that game. Otherwise, obviously, you're going to go with the option that has a higher yield. So the NFT, we're like, right now we're discussing it as a team, whether, for example, we'll do a combined NFT representing the yield from multiple projects. And I don't think it's a necessarily bad idea, but I'm not sure if it's something that we also have to build, or if there's even a benefit to holders by building it. So we're still exploring that option. And then the third question, does the Hunt NFT just generate yield, or does it come with any future governance-like qualities? It's not going to have any. It's not going to have any involvement in our governance, and the reason for that is because the DAO is something that is a lot more complex and requires a lot more involvement. And if you want to be part of the DAO, you have to buy CCC, and that's how we're going to keep it. Um, the people who are buying the Hunt NFT, even though they are benefiting us by paying the performance fee, I don't think they have the same stake in CCC as someone who's actually holding the token. And so that's how we're going to keep it, is to be part of the DAO, you have to hold CCC. And yeah, TUS is going to be paid out daily to the NFT holder wallets. So you want to add the contract address to your wallet when it releases, so that you can see, your rewards coming in. And then regarding the restrictions on the pool purchases, um, so someone could purchase 100% of the pool if they want to, which, is going to be on launch, I believe, $120,000 for the pool. And so yeah, they're able to do that. And I know that there's people who are going to say, well, like, I also want access to the pool, and I get it. But we're going to have these pools constantly available, and just from the perspective of CCC and Hunt, it's much better to get that money quicker over a delayed period of time. So I personally don't care if someone buys 100% of the pool. um, and then, no, the money from Hunt is not held in a multi-sig. There's no reason for a multi-sig as far as I see it, because the money is going to be coming in and out all of the time. So having a multi-sig is just going to prevent that money from going out to holders. And regarding how the yield is going to be kept so high, that's what the yield is right now in Krabata. If the price of TUS goes down, we have no control over that. We take no responsibility for it. And I don't want to hear any bitching about it, because it's not our problem. What we know is that right now, with the game design and with the TUS rewards, that is the yield that it's paying out. And from Krabata's team, they've said that they don't plan to make any changes to the TUS rewards for the idle game. Um, and I mean, I think that's obvious, because people have poured tens of thousands of dollars into that game. And so if they were to just dramatically change the reward structure, then, like, of course, those people are going to dump and move somewhere else. So I don't think they would make a rash decision like that. And my own personal thoughts is, Krabata has a long way to go. It's going to see a lot of growth in the near future. And so, if anything, I would expect, even if like, the token reward were to decrease, I think the dollar amount is going to remain stable, or, if anything, even go up. I think it's more likely that it goes up in the short to midterm, if anything. Um, and then okay, so let me go through some more questions. First, I'm gonna let the DeFi fanatic speak, and then I'll go back to the text questions. Hey, DeFi Fanatic, you can speak.
Quick question about opening hunt pools for like Credaba. Is there a maximum percent of the Credaba crabs you guys would want to have, or you just increase them as much as people are willing to deposit?
No, so actually, like, the way it works is it's not that we are like taking the money and then creating the teams. It's we're only opening the pools once we already have the teams. And the reason for that is because then they start mining and distributing rewards immediately. Because I don't want to deal with the FUD of someone being like, oh, I have to wait 1 day or 2 days for you to create these teams and receive my yield. So that's the way we're doing it is um, we're only launching the pools once the teams have actually been created. And yeah.
And then my second question is, how is CCC going to vote like on Credaba? Is that going to be the DAO decides how to vote, you decide how we vote, or a mix? Or
Yeah, so the way that it's worked so far is like we pass proposals and then we decide to enter those games. And then, like I said in the beginning as well, is like we're using a delegate model. So, for example, Briscoe is one of those delegates, B-Skin and Mer are the other delegates. And so, like they're the ones that ultimately, like get to decide. As delegates, we're basically like delegating that role to them to make, like executive decisions like that. So it's not even just for myself. But yeah, it's like there's going to be proposals and discussions around this. But like Krabata, the proposal was already passed, and that's why we entered Krabata.
thank you. And one more question for the NFT secondary market for people reselling them. Will you guys be adding any tax to them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So, because people can trade the NFTs on the secondary market, will you guys be charging any fees on that?
Yeah. So we haven't decided on the secondary market yet. We're still discussing that. And even if we do decide to go with a secondary marketplace, that's not an immediate feature. That's something that will release, like weeks down the line. It's not something that's difficult to create. It's just we don't even know if we want to add that feature because that could actually be detrimental to Hunt, where people are like selling the NFTs at a discount rather than people just entering Hunt directly. So yeah, we haven't made a decision on that yet.
There would be unofficial ones regardless, though, right? They can be listed on any NFT marketplace.
Yeah, there could be unofficial ones, but then people could create fake NFTs. If people are doing OTC deals, there's the risk of scams and so on. But I mean, if people want to do it on their own, I really don't care. It's not my problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'll add Chef and then Sinan. Yeah.
Um, so I was just going to ask a quick question about the mechanics, and you can stop me if you've already said it because I only got off like the last half of this call. But I was wondering, so say y'all open a pool, it gets filled for 120K, and y'all buy the teams or whatever, and give that pool access to the yield. And then say like 2 weeks later, you open another pool, and you have those teams, and you give them access to that yield. If the price of a team has gone up, like say 200%, then the same 120K obviously gets you half the number of teams for the second pool. So my question would be: are those two NFTs going to be separate? Like, will the revenue streams of the first one always be just for that first 120K, or will all
Yeah. So
okay, go on.
Yeah, so that's already been accounted for. And so, for example, if you watch the marketplace for Krabata right now, the price of the teams have actually gone down. And so, if you were to buy 3 pure bull crabs and start mining them, the cost is something like $16,320. That may be different now because the price of Tusk changed.
Right.
And that team actually generates about $17,500 per month. So if anything, you would actually get, like you would get over a 100% return in a month's time.
Right.
So that isn't the case with Hunt because, like I said, it's a 2% daily return. But the reason we're charging that amount for the pools, where it's going to be $120,000, is because the daily return still remains 2%, which is still incredibly high.
Right.
But it also gives us flexibility so that if the price of crabs does change or the price of breeding changes, then we actually have the funds to continue putting out teams.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about running the risk of running out of funds, in which case, like that would be terrible for the depositors and for us. So
Right. But I guess my question is just, could you essentially be diluted if, say, we started a new game and you were like the first round NFT buyer in the new game, and then 10 rounds later the price of the teams is 10x as high? Will that all be under one unified NFT that represents all of those different rounds, or will each round have its own separate NFT with a different amount of teams under it based on the price of the teams at the time of the round?
yeah, so I mean the price of the teams doesn't really change that drastically. For example,
Okay, so it's all going to be under.
So I don't think.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah, like watching the marketplace, I've seen the prices fluctuate. For example, from like 10 grand to like 12 grand or something.
Right.
But it's never been like 100% like increase
Okay.
or anything like that. But obviously, like that would change the return, and like we have no control over that. And so, like, if something that dramatic were to happen, then it's like we could simply say, like, okay, like these are the changes, and this is how it affects the yield. But it's not something that we have control
Right.
over, and I don't really think it's an immediate concern, because it's like the rewards have been the same forever so far with Krabata. It hasn't changed.
Right.
So
Okay. All right. Thank you.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna answer some of the questions from the Discord, and then I'll add. Actually, no. First, I'm gonna go to what's your name, Sananchan, and then I'll answer the questions from Discord. So yeah, you can speak.
Yeah, I didn't really have a question, just kind of response to the guy earlier that was worried about like the dividends and shit. Because you said that you've gotten that question before. To anyone who's worried about that, like, first off, saying I want to take profits without selling like sounds stupid to begin with. But Hunt and any similar product, to me, it sounds like gives you a perfect opportunity to actually have an opportunity to take profit, generate yield without selling your CCC. You're actually benefiting your CCC. So my advice to that guy would be just ape into Hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an option as well. But yeah, like I said, it's like the 10% fee is there for a reason. And I feel like it's just kind of like counting pennies at that point. It's like you made money, you want to exit, and you don't want a 10% loss, but it's like everyone has to pay it. And it's also what benefits the protocol. So it's like if you're in this long term, like if anything, you would want us to keep the 10% rather than give away dividends that don't benefit our treasury at all. But yeah, so I'll answer the question from the Discord. Yeah, we have discussed taking TUS for the pools, and like that's something that's definitely going to happen in the future, because that way we don't have to worry about slippage, and like people can just deposit their TUS rather than us market buying it. But the thing is, there is still a benefit to taking in, like, let's say AVIX or USDC. Like, let's say the price of AVIX rises, then it's obviously can buy more TUS. Or if the price of TUS were to dip, then we can buy more TUS using USDC. So it's, like we're not going to do strictly TUS, but we will have pools that accept TUS. And no, there's not going to be any different Discord. There isn't going to be a new Twitter. The only new thing that is going to happen is Hunt will obviously have its own website, but it's not easier for us to communicate creating a separate Discord, because then I have to go through a pain in the ass process of going to the Hunt Discord and keeping up with everything there when I can keep up with everything in one Discord. So the Hunt channel is going to stay in the CCC Discord. Yeah, someone talked about a divestment strategy from Krabata. Once we launch these pools, like we still own all of the crabs, but technically we've already made, a return on our initial investment. So like these crabs are being paid for. So the divestment strategy is hunt, basically, and then we just take the performance fee from it afterwards. So if we have, let's say, if we spent $400,000 on crabs, and the pools are $400,000, then obviously we've recovered our money. So it's not really a question of divesting from Crabata. From this point on, it's more of like how are we going to profit off of it with these performance fees. But yeah, we're already recovering our initial. All right, Simple, I'll add you to speak. Simple Crypto, and then Epic, you'll come next. Simple.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, so I don't know that much about NFTs, and I did miss like the first 5 minutes of this call, but I just wanted to clarify some things. And so I know it's a completely different project that was wrapped Memo and all of the stuff that they had planned for Wonderland. I think the idea was to own a share of the market cap, and then there was like some revenue sharing ideas and whatever. So I'm wondering if you could help to differentiate what owning a share of the pools would be for Hunt, and also if there's anything related to market cap related to Hunt, like if Hunt is its own new token or if it's more based around NFTs. And to be honest, I don't even know if there's such a thing as market cap for NFTs. So yeah, I just wondered if you could clarify some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't, you could, like technically measure the market cap, but it's irrelevant because, like the NFT price it's not like, the price isn't contingent on the market cap or, like the supply at all. So the NFTs don't really have any value aside from the yield that they pay out. And that's what will determine the value of the NFT. Basically, if someone were to sell it, on the secondary market, like, oh, this NFT generates $1,000 per month, and then it's up to the users or the buyers and sellers to determine what the value of that is. But market cap, circulating supply, all of that is pretty much irrelevant to Hunt. And the art is also irrelevant. The art is just something that we did for fun, but we don't expect the art to have any value attached to it whatsoever. So people are not going to be trading NFTs because they're like, oh, I have a horse NFT and I have a mammoth NFT. That has nothing to do with it. The yield is all that matters. And then regarding the share, it's just like I said, if it's contingent on the pool price or the pool size. So if it's $100,000, your share is going to be whatever you deposit, like represented as a percentage of the total pool size. So, yeah.
So how does that initial deposit relate to the minting of an NFT? Like, is it a one size NFT or is there different types of minting based on how much you put in?
No, the NFT can be minted, infinitely, basically, for a variety of projects or for Crabata even. So, like, if let's say a year from now, we had 1 million of these pools, and there would be, there would be more than 1 million NFTs. It would depend on how much money has come in. So how many people have minted it, and essentially how many shares there are of all the pools, together. So I can't, I can't say a number, but basically the NFTs can be minted infinitely. The NFT, what determines that is basically how many shares are in each pool. So, and I can't give that number in advance. It depends on what people deposit, what amount they
Right.
deposit. And like I said, the minimum deposit is $100. So you could have, like a pool, like with fucking like hundreds of shares essentially. Yeah.
So, and excuse me for just trying to, I don't know if this is basic stuff, but like, is depositing a certain amount into that pool the same thing as minting an NFT, or is it like related?
Yeah. When you deposit, you mint the NFT.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Knight, or no, Epic, and then Knight of the Round Table.
I just wanted you to shed some light on you talked about upgrading some current teams. So if I'm like, for example, I'm running 3 teams right now of pure bulks. Can you sort of go through the process of that evaluation, and will that change over time? Like I'm currently trying to build out a 4th team before I'd try to upgrade if possible. But like, is there a time limit on that? And maybe talk about your plans around how that's going to work.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to turn my mic on. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I got distracted by the Discord questions.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, it's just about the upgrading for people with current teams. So the offer around essentially trading in our teams for the yield that they generate minus the performance fee.
Yeah.
And so for an example for mine, I'm just trying to figure out like what's the best way to work it and what's the plan for doing that. Like I'm currently running
Yeah.
3 teams. I'm waiting to upgrade to a 4th, but is there a certain time frame that you're that sort of offer is on, or is it sort of unlimited?
No, I mean, it's going to be dependent on our needs. Because like, for example, there may be a point where we don't actually have the resources to upgrade all of the teams. Just like from like what I initially counted, we should be able to do it for quite a bit of them, so it shouldn't be an issue anytime soon. But it is like, for example, if we have people who want to deposit, like 1,000 teams, and we don't have, like 1,000 crabs coming in anytime soon, then we're not going to be able to like, upgrade them. Or 2,000 crabs, I guess. So since it would be like 2 crabs. But yeah, so but in terms of the yield for yourself and like the value of the team would technically increase because we've upgraded them, right? And since like that's our own capital that we've added basically. But in terms of the yield, if the yield remains, like let's say you have like a 100% win rate or whatever, 90%, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get 85% of that. And so like, that's the only difference basically from you mining them yourself. But like I said, as well as like most people are probably only mining 4 or 5 times a day, because no one has time to stay up 24 hours to do this. And so since this is automated, it's pretty much the equivalent of mining 5 times a day, except you're not the one mining, we are. So
Yeah.
that's the benefit of it.
Yeah, no, I get the
But
benefit. It's fantastic. I
yeah,
guess for me, it's just I can still breed. I can still breed for cheaper, but like I'm not going to do that.
I mean, breeding right now with the primes gems is really expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, to buy 2 of them, they're about like 20,000 to even 25,000 a piece. Some of them are even going for like 30,000 a piece. So and then the breeding cost itself is like $16,000. So yeah.
No, I yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
I get it. I think it's great. I'm trying to bide my time and get a 4th team,
Yeah.
and then I think it's an amazing service.
Yeah, so someone asked a pretty similar question, but yeah, it's like, so the difference between like you depositing your team and like versus you like depositing money into the pool is that when you give a team to us, that's essentially counted as like you are getting 100% of that pool, and then minus the performance fee, then it becomes 85%, right? So that's the only difference is like obviously if you pay $10,000 into a pool, you're not going to get 100% when the actual value of the team is much more than that. But when someone deposits a team, it's just considered like 100% of the pool, and that's what the NFT would represent as well. So yeah.
All right, thanks.
And then regarding when people deposit their teams, yeah, it's just like we'll have the team, it'll be considered part of like our inventory. And then we know that, it has a composition of like, let's say 3 bulks, and then that needs to be changed to like, let's say like 2 gems, 1 bulk, or 2 primes, 1 bulk, whatever it is. And so since we're breeding all of those classes, we'll be able to switch out the teams and upgrade them, and you won't have to pay for that out of your own pocket. So that was in response to Dave on Discord. But yeah, I'm gonna add someone else to speak. Yeah, Knight of the Round Table. Hey, buddy,
Hi,
how's it
thank
going?
you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Just my opinion. I've been in cross chain now for quite a while actually, and I've looked at the price. I promise you, I haven't sold a penny since I've invested, but I've just looked at the volatility of its price. It's quite a high volatility compared to other crypto, like significantly high. We're talking about like 2 days ago, 48 hours ago is 50% its value now. It jumps 25, 30%. Is there a way you can stabilize that price? And I know it's difficult, but there are other kind of similar projects, I would say, on different chains who've done bonding. And I wrote, I think, on one of the Twitter things where you could potentially buy your token at a slight discount with it being bonded for 7 to 10 days, so that people can't overreact and you get whales selling and dumping price, and then it just instantly gets bought back. And it feels sometimes we've reached that 1,000 mark, and every time you touch it, it gets a big dip down, as if somebody's got a bot ready to just sell. So my main question is something to stabilize the price. And regarding Hunt, I view your token as CCC, and also Hunt as like an ETF, or equivalent to a stock ETF. So the more that people buy, the more you have liquidity to go use that liquidity to then generate gains for us. Am I correct in that?
Right. And so what I was saying is, even if you compare it to the Time or OHM model, for example, it's like, with those, it's like you're bonding and then you're getting, a specific yield that's promised to you. But it's essentially utilizing a Ponzi scheme. And the difference is that the yield from our product is actually coming from, a play to earn game with its own economy. And that's why it's going to be sustainable in the long run. And even, like I said to people too, is like the worst case scenario could be like, if they cut the reward rate, or the price of TUS falls, it's like, okay, maybe you get 1% daily, which is still, a competitive yield, and it's still higher than the vast majority of protocols out there in the market. So I just don't see how anyone could beat us out on this right now in the foreseeable future, unless basically they're capable of automating this themselves, or buying a bot off of someone else and then mining the game themselves. But then that has its own risks that come with it, of course, right? So 1 second, let me put headphones in. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question in regards to like the volatility and the yields, and the price impact. So basically, like, we're gonna add liquidity, and again, the comparison between OHM is basically we're just gonna have a pool that is worth like $100,000 of CCC, and then that $100,000 of CCC is going to be added immediately to liquidity. So yeah, I mean, like, we can actually source liquidity using Hunt if we want to, in any asset that we want to. And that's how we plan to use it, to add liquidity for CCC, so that the price isn't as crazy as it's been recently. Yeah, so that's going to happen on the launch of Hunt, by the way. So we'll be adding that liquidity immediately once Hunt launches. And all right, let me see another question from Discord. All these guys are fucking spamming Scottish gifts, and I know that you're not Scottish, so I don't know if that's considered offensive there or something, but yeah. So this is the other thing that, like, I really want to emphasize with Hunt. And, like, me saying that this is better than anything on the market is like, it's not even just to be cocky. It's literally a fact. It's like Thor is not paying as high as we are. Strong is not paying as much as we are. MCC is definitely not going to pay as much as we are. And so, like, being part of this process of it being automated and being integrated with the Krabata ecosystem, like, for the holders and for CCC, it's like one of the best products on the market. And that's why we decided to run with this idea. But it's not just going to be Krabata. And I keep repeating that because I think that is actually like one of the most bullish, reasons for this project, that I don't think, people in the market are really going to understand until they see it with their own eyes and they see it put into practice, which is Hunt is adaptable to multiple ecosystems, and that is going to benefit CCC tremendously. Because if, like, let's say there's, like $50 million out there that wants to go into Strong, and I think Strong is at like $100 million market cap right now. But if you think of all those small holders all over the world who keep seeing these shills for Strong, and they want to get into it, but they don't have $5,000 that they can put into it. Well, now CCC can crowdsource that liquidity, give them the yield, take a small percentage fee, and now they have access to Strong. Now we could apply that to, like a bunch of other play to earn games. We can provide it to a bunch of other node projects. And so that is a lot of money coming into CCC. And the more popular the project, the more people that want to enter it. And, like the more people are going to come to Hunt because we're going to be the ones fractionalizing all of those protocols. So this idea, it's really has incredibly wide applications. And for me, that is probably like, the biggest benefit to CCC is that fact. And that's what's going to allow us to grow, for the long term. So, and yeah, actually, so let me share a picture so Juicy in the Discord. His question was, with the Hunt NFTs, are they going to show anywhere the percentage of the pool they own? And what will stop secondary sellers trying to scam people out of saying it's 10% of the pool when really it's like 2%, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's the issue with an OTC market or people selling it on another marketplace, which if you use OpenSea, then you already know there's a lot of scams that happen. People create fake NFTs and then they list it for a ridiculously high price. And if you're not careful, you end up buying the fake NFT. So what I can say to that is don't buy NFTs from an unofficial source, and then you won't have to worry about those scams. That's really like the best advice I can give you is don't buy from secondary sellers if you're worried about scams. If we create a marketplace, then you can wait for the marketplace to launch and buy it there. And now, in regards to your first questions, are we going to show the percentage of the pool? So I'm going to post this picture in our Discord so that you guys can see what it looks like. But so this is on our testnet. And you can see if you look at the NFT characteristics, it says it says Hunt ID, it says Hunt name, pool ID, and then it says your share, and it says pool size. And so the pool size here is $16,000, and you can see that I own 53.12% in one pool, and another pool I own 24.37%, and then you also see the NFTs that I have. So it's going to be all of that information is going to be there for you to see. So you'll know, like what share of the pool you have. And then even aside from that, and we could have launched Hunt sooner, but we decided to implement some more changes. But one of those changes that we wanted to add was actually essentially a chart for people to see how much yield they've earned over time. So like, let's say you come back and you look at your inventory is going to tell you that you've earned, X amount in yield. And so that way you'll be able to track how much you've earned. So Old Bull asked, let's say your crab pool returns multiple X's over 6 months, then you want to leave Krabata. Does that pool live on in a different investment, or is that pool closed and initial investment gone? Your initial investment isn't gone because you already made a return on it. So that's an inaccurate way of putting it, in my opinion. But sorry, 1 second. I have to move into a different room because my roommate is on a call as well. Anyway, so after 6 months, if you've made multiple X's on your investment, I personally don't care if you have even more exit liquidity. So I don't really care to design something for that. But if there is a reason to do it where there isn't, like a significant disadvantage to CCC, then we'll consider it. But if someone is just looking for exit liquidity for their NFT after they're up 400%, I really don't care. All right, so yeah, I've answered this question 10 times already, guys. Can you sell the NFT? I don't know yet. We're still deciding on it. Regarding the launch of Hunt, so Hunt is going to be done this week, assuming everything goes correctly. So we're looking at basically like 2 to 4 days for it to launch. So it's going to be really soon. And that's how yeah, so that's when the first pools will go up. And then, as I said, we're already working on fractionalizing a couple other projects and creating a couple other pools, and those are also expected to launch this month. So, yeah, just stick around and pay attention, and we'll launch the other pools soon. And DeFi Avenger, you asked about the cap. We're not going to add that because that would mean also delaying the project at this point, and so we're not going to go back to code that. And then Big Vernie asked, how long does the pool last? The pool lasts forever. I mean, if Krabata were to suddenly eliminate the idle game, then that would be the only reason why the pool disappears. But as long as the idle game exists, and as long as it's paying out rewards, the pool is going to be there. So that could literally be months, years, And then regarding the release of new pools, it's going to depend on how quickly we acquire new teams, how quickly we're breeding them, and that could change for a variety of reasons. So I can't say how long it could take. It could be, it could be a couple hours, it could be one day, it could be a week. But for the immediate release, I expect pools to launch pretty quickly. So it could even be 1 or 2 days when we have new pools for people to deposit funds to. And then we're not making a tier-based system for the NFT because having the NFTs created, introducing randomization, all of those things increase the development time. And our concern was just with getting Hunt out immediately because it's not, it's not an art project. So I'm not really concerned with the art behind it. It was just for fun. I'm more concerned with the yield that these NFTs are generating. So yeah, that's the focus for us. And then I would say USDC and CCC should be the focus for now, because those are the deposits that we're looking for Hunt. And I'll release all the details exactly of like what assets we're taking, as we release them. But people will also be able to see them on the website. And then regarding partnerships, people who are in the Discord saw that CCF Refi reached out to us. There was another metaverse project that was also farming as a service that reached out to me. And then, yeah, we're still going to partner with StackOS. And then we're also talking about partnering with another project, but I can't really add that information right now. But it is a play-to-earn gaming project that we're looking to partner with soon. Yeah, so regarding my biggest concern is I don't really have a huge concern, to be honest. I want the project to succeed, obviously. I want everyone here to make a fucking shit ton of money and retire and go enjoy their lives. And that's also what I want to do with my own life. So I hope we're all able to accomplish that. That's my biggest concern. Aside from that, I'm pretty confident in what we're doing, even though the market may be too fucking naive to understand it. But Hunt is a really good idea, and I think it's going to make us a shit ton of money, and it's going to send us to over $100 million market cap. So just to be blatant, I think that's how big the idea is. And regarding marketing and the website, so the website is going to be worked on as soon as we're done with Hunt, because then we can move resources from Hunt to the CCC website. And then regarding marketing, we hired a marketing agency today. We also hired an influencer with 200,000 followers. All of that stuff has been agreed on. So it's going to start soon. We just wanted to finish Hunt before we launch all of that stuff. But yeah, so the marketing, the deals are in place. It's happening, and it's going to happen soon. There's another aspect to the marketing, which is basically and I've mentioned it a few times, there's a global brand that everyone here knows. Every person in the world knows about it because they're everywhere. And they're also actually partnering with a project related to play to earn gaming. And we have been asked to provide the scholarships for that project. So basically, we have a partnership with a global brand. We're going to be providing the scholarships for them and basically onboarding potentially, thousands, tens of thousands of players into play to earn gaming. So that's something that is like on our long-term roadmap. I can't say definitively when that's going to happen, but like that's something that we're talking about right now. And we're possibly going to meet with our team pretty soon. Or Briscoe will be meeting them actually. Yeah. So in regards to what is the better investment, if you want to earn 2% daily, then Hunt is the better investment. But like if you want to be part of the DAO, and you also have to consider that the more Hunt grows, the more CCC grows. So the way I see it is, it's not an either or question. You should probably do both, because if Hunt is growing, then that also means CCC is going to be growing. And then if something were to happen in the future where, like, let's say the price of Tusk drops, but CCC is invested in like 50 new projects by that point, and we're at $1 billion market cap, then you probably want to be in the token at a $1 billion market cap instead of the project where the yield is declining. So really, I would have exposure to both. That's my opinion. But in the immediate future, I would definitely keep money aside for Hunt, because it's just a fact that it pays a higher yield at this point. Yeah, and we're still exploring all the other things that we mentioned in our original roadmap, like the Wrapped CCC, for example. We actually reached out to a lending protocol about it, and they have no issue partnering with us. But in order for that partnership to happen, we need $20 million in liquidity. So if we can reach $20 million in liquidity, we'll have Wrapped CCC, and you'll be able to get a loan with your CCC. And we definitely want to pursue that. Like that's definitely our long-term plan, is to get to that point so that we can start offering CCC loans. Yeah, people keep asking me, is the 2% of an initial mint value, or does the 2% grow over time? If the token price increases, or if the reward rate increases, like let's say the Krabata teams decides that they want to add 400 tusks per mine instead of 303.75 tusks per mine, then the yield is going to increase. You're still going, then, like that daily return instead of 2% will be whatever it is, like, 4%, whatever. I don't care if that happens. It's like, that's just how it works, and you guys are going to get the same thing. And obviously, if that happens for you guys, we're also getting, an increased return. So there's really no reason for me to penalize any of you. But yeah, it's going to be contingent on the token price and the reward rate. But as far as the Krabata team has said, they don't plan on changing the reward rate. But I do think the token price will increase, because a lot more people are going to be investing in Krabata. Pattern. Hello.
Sorry, my mic was off.
What's up?
Not sure if you answered this earlier, but if the Krabata team that we're investing in with the NFT like somehow shuts down, isn't producing as much, what happens to the NFT and the original investment?
I mean, you could ask the same question to Convex, for example. What if Curve shuts down? Then what is Convex going to do? The likelihood of that happening is incredibly low, and then it's also not my responsibility. So if you think that's going to happen, then don't invest. But I don't think that's ever going to happen, or is even like a question worth asking at this point. So yeah, it's like the likelihood of that happening. I mean, unless Krabata rugs, something like that is never going to happen.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the game that you're currently investing in, for some reason they switch up the games, and there's a, you would just transfer to a different game on Krabata.
So if they stop, like for example, hypothetically, if they were to stop distributing rewards for Krabata, then that NFT is obviously not going to receive yield anymore, because the yield is coming from Krabata. So essentially, if you're investing in a NFT that is receiving yield from Krabata, then you would have to be bullish on that project. It's the same thing if you were to enter a pool for like ETH, and then ETH ceases to exist. Like, I can't do anything about that. But that's where the yield is coming from. So if anything, try to be aware of what the pool is for, and whether you actually believe in the project. You know, like that's pretty much how I expect it to work. Is the same thing as any other LP pool. Like people don't enter, you know, liquidity pools for projects they don't believe in. I don't expect them to enter hunt pools for projects they don't believe in. So
Um, that guy's point right there about Kabata rewards lowering. I mean, I certainly think that's a possibility, considering that the rewards are so high because the game is growing, and eventually when it receives when it reaches a level in which it sort of is at a fair value and it's not really growing and it's stagnating, surely the rewards will start to lower down. And are you prepared for that?
your mic cut off, by the way. Can't hear you anymore.
Shit, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, like I think there will be a point where Kabata rewards surely will taper off and start to lower. And is that just a matter of you guys diversifying and then going into newer projects to maintain the yield, or is it Kabata until the end sort of vibe?
Like I said, it's not really our responsibility to think about that, because when you enter a liquidity pool, for example, you could enter a liquidity pool because it's paying out, you know, like 100% APY, but that's not fixed either. It's going to change based off, you know, a variety of factors. That's not our responsibility to figure it out for people. Like our responsibility is to like find yields where we can and then offer that product to people. But if rewards were to taper off, for example, you're investing, you know, like I would assume that you know the risks associated with it. You would understand a little bit about the project that you're entering, and you're not just depositing to random pools, not knowing anything about the project. So that's really like all I can say for it. It's not our responsibility to really like be concerned with those risks. I mean, we can talk about them for sure, and you know we can have a disclaimer on the website saying like the yields paying out is based on the current reward rate for Krabata, and you know I think that's fair enough. But like I've said, the developers themselves, if you go into the Krabata chat, they've said that they don't plan on changing the reward rate for the idle game. The gameplay mechanics can change, and that can also affect the reward rate. And that's why we're upgrading our teams, is so that we can still earn, you know, like the highest rewards possible within the game. But that's really all that we can do. When we're saying that we're paying 2% daily, that is based on the current returns that the game is providing after our performance fee is deducted from it.
Yeah, all right, that's fully fair, and I think anyone investing in Hunt should take that into account. But let's say in terms of CCC, are you guys, if Krabata rewards do start to lower, will you guys, obviously a big part of the treasury is in Krabata right now. Is that something you guys are willing to diversify in the future if rewards start to taper off?
Yeah, so like I said, we can consider creating like a combined NFT where it's like composed of yield from a variety of games. But then people have to be aware that like if you go into something like that, and it's not a bad idea, you know, it's like I said, it's like we haven't developed it yet because we've been focusing on just making these idle game pools first. But like let's say you know, like a month from now, 2 months from now, we've fractionalized, let's say Pagaxi, you know, Krabata, or any other play to earn game. We could create one that's just like a combined NFT, but then people have to recognize that if one of those games were to, you know, like suddenly cease to exist or the reward rate is cut, then that is obviously going to affect the yield as well. But then, you know, the other side of it is you could say, well, it's lower risk because you have diversified exposure instead of just one game. So that's definitely something that we can consider in the future. And then we could do, for example, like multiple pools, or one is exposure to one game and another one is like a combined NFT with exposure to multiple games. But yeah, I mean, it's not impossible, but it's not something that we plan on releasing right now because we're focused on Krabata.
And why does it have to be a separate NFT pool? I mean, what isn't that sort of the envision with CCC, is that I will have exposure to a variety of pay to earn games just by holding CCC?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between CCC is that CCC has a treasury that can be allocated towards, like a variety of projects. We could accumulate Bitcoin, we could accumulate Ethereum, we can, like deposit into our, like, stable coins. There's a variety of strategies that we can pursue, and the price of CCC is going to be based on the performance, like of our treasury. So the difference with Hunt is that Hunt is just fractionalizing ownership in play to earn games, nodes, and so on, projects that are popular and people want to get into, but they can't afford to get into. And so we're fractionalizing it to make it more accessible. And then we're taking a performance fee out of it because, we're the ones managing it, automating it, and so on. And we're taking a performance fee because we're the ones who've created the protocol. And then that fee is distributed back to CCC. Yeah. So that's really the main difference between the two.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we've spoken with the Krabata team, and pretty much the response was that they like the idea. They think it helps with accessibility, which has been a huge issue because um, the teams are just expensive. Like I said, a Prime or a Gem Crab, I'll look at the price right now again. But if you were to go to the marketplace to buy, let's say you wanted to buy a team, and I'll go with the lowest end actually, and then I'll go to the highest end. And so prime crabs are the best crabs right now, basically. They get a stat boost based on their purity. And so if you get a pure crab, like they get a pretty significant stat boost. So looking at the marketplace right now, if you were to get one crab that has been bred 4 times, you're looking at $5,300 per crab. But if it's been bred 4 times, that basically means you like can't breed that crab anymore. It's really expensive. Um, Looking at one with like a 3 breed count for a pure prime, you're looking at $5,800. And now I'll go to the ones with a 0 breed count. And most people, I mean, like whales, gilds, and so on, they want the crabs that have a 0 breed count. And so you're looking at the cheapest one on the market right now is $19,100, and then it goes to $19,800. And there's only 4 crabs for that price, and then it goes to $20,800. And very quickly it starts getting into 21,000, 22,000, 25,000. So that's the issue is people can't access these games because it's very expensive. And it's expensive because people are earning a lot of money off this game from both breeding and from mining. And so essentially it's like a free market where people are determining the price of the crabs. And it's based obviously on supply and demand like anything else. But right now people can't access it because it's too expensive. And Hunt, where we come in, is when we fractionalize it, it becomes accessible because you can pool the funds together from 10 people, 20 people, 100 people to so that you can, all buy a team and get exposure to the yield that the game provides. And then I don't think we're gonna partner with Krabata because of Hunt necessarily. I'm not gonna say that for sure, but like I said, they love the idea. They think it helps them with accessibility, and they think it aligns with their vision of making Krabata more accessible. So yeah, I'm not even gonna discuss a partnership with Krabata because it's not my priority right now. And then percentage of CCC buybacks to liquidity into burn. Like I said, our immediate objective is to get to 50% stables in our treasury. And then once we've reached that, then we can consider doing buybacks. And we're going to put it up to a DAO vote. And, we'll let people decide how much we should do in buybacks on a regular basis. But I expect that buybacks are something that's going to be constantly negotiated depending on the treasury performance. And like just depending on how much money we have, it's not going to be a fixed number where we say like we're going to do $100,000 forever. It's going to change based on how our treasury is doing. But yeah, so yeah, it's been an hour and a half now, so I'm gonna start wrapping up. But yeah, I think So the important points really to consider is like what Hunt does and what makes it unique is we're in a market where if you look at the most popular tokens in the market, what are people talking about? They're talking about farming as a service. They're talking about nodes. And I would say, personally, at least, how I see it is that those are probably the two most popular sorts of projects in crypto right now. Obviously, play to earn gaming, NFTs, all that stuff is popular, but I think farming as a service and nodes probably have more hype than either of those right now. But anyway, so basically, what that signifies to me is that all of these people are looking for a project where they're getting diversified exposure and they're getting, significant yield from the token that they're holding or the NFT that they're holding. And really, like, considering that context, like Hunt fits into that perfectly because we're doing that without being a Ponzi scheme, where all these other projects essentially are Ponzi schemes. And then not only is it not a Ponzi scheme, but it pays more than all of those projects. So I think we're in a really good position to capture attention from the market. And I think that once we start the marketing and people begin to realize this, they're going to see the rewards and that's going to attract people. It's just like, people started going into Strong because Strong, people are making a shit ton of money off of it. But then when you look at it, Strong is only paying 1% per day. We're paying twice that amount. So it's like, why would we not be bigger than Strong, for example? So that's the way I look at it is, we have a unique product and, I think it's something that can attract a lot of people towards CCC. And then aside from that, I think really what we need to focus on in terms of education and marketing is really showing people that like this is a novel idea that hasn't been done before. There's no project out there that has done this yet. There is one that's in development right now, and they raised $10 million in in a private funding round. But we have done it before they even have, they don't even have a white paper. But I think that this is something where if you're looking at the metaverse and the play to earn gaming sector, if you believe that those have their own complex economies and there's going to be a variety of strategies that people are employing in order to, make a profit off of them, where, for example, it could just be literally selling in-game assets. You don't even have to play the game. Your only job is to, accumulate, create, and sell these in-game assets. You can literally make a living off of that. And, Hunt is exploring how to do that. So you could think of Hunt, for example, as like an industrial size supplier of those in-game assets. And so that has long-term potential. And I think we'll probably see more projects like that in the future. And you'll probably see more projects that are crowdsourcing this sort of liquidity to do that. But we're still the first to be on it. This idea really has a long way to go. And we're going to be exploring, pretty much any ecosystem, any game, and any crypto project that we can apply it to. But yeah, so that's really, I think that's the main point to take away from Hunt. Don't be focused on just the 2% yield because that's, the idea is a lot bigger than that. But yeah, so I guess I'll end the call here, and then we have the questions drafted, and we'll share them on our Twitter. It's gonna be a Google form, and then people can answer it, and the first person to answer correctly, all of them correctly, will get $500. Yeah, so all right, that's it, guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for holding CCC, and expect to see Hunt this week. Later.